We are now in Katherine Harris's shop. Katherine is an 8-year member of Richmond Woodturners and currently the activities director. Thanks for inviting us to your shop, Katherine.
Oh, you're welcome to come here.
You've been a member for 8 years. Tell me, how long have you been turning and what got you started in the first place?
Well, I started turning probably about 10 years ago. I always thought it would be interesting, and I like doing craft work. I like working with my hands. I'd done a lot of furniture building before that, so I took the first class in turning, the basic class, and I liked it, so I asked for a lathe for Christmas. My husband gave me the lathe, and I took the first class over again, the bowl class, and then ever since then I've been collecting stuff and turning, and I got rid of all my bowls about 2 years ago by giving them to my trainer to use as Christmas gifts, and now I've got another probably a couple hundred.
Well, we're standing right next to your lathe. Why don't you take a minute and tell us about the lathe and what you like about it? And in particular, have you made anything for your lathe to make it easier?
Okay, well, it's just a simple Delta MIDI lathe that my husband gave me for Christmas after I had taken one turning class. Really liked it and wanted to turn. It has variable speeds, which I really like, and it has a little chart here where I can see it. And it reverses, which is something I absolutely really like because that helps when I'm sanding. It doesn't blow the sawdust into my face. A couple changes I've made. This Life Center obviously is not stock, but I can get the tool rest underneath that, which is really nice, so that I can turn forward when the thing is holding. I built these as part of the stand to hold all my knives, mostly because this is the way the lathes were set up when I took the class. And it seemed to work. So, and that way I have all my knives where I can get to them and their points are somewhat protected. And then I have my parting tools over there in just tool holders because I don't have enough space here for my parting tools.
Is there anything about the lathe that you wish it did or you wish you could change?
If I bought a new lathe, which I'm not going to do, if I bought a lathe, I would probably get a bigger one. Certainly longer, and I know I can get an extension, but certainly a little bit longer that way. A bigger drop there would be nice. But since I never do anything really big anyway, most of what I turn is very small, this works fine. So I don't really have anything I would want to change on it.
Okay. We are obviously interested in your shop, and you have put a lot of things in a small space.
Yes,
so
I have.
If you would take a few minutes and just walk us around your shop and tell us about it.
Okay, glad to. Okay, first I'm going to get rid of the lathe. And as you can see, everything in my shop is on wheels. And I have repurposed a lot of things, like this little cabinet of drawers. That's kind of an interesting story, I think. I had rebuilt all my kitchen drawers, and my daughter's boyfriend decided they weren't good enough. So he took them all out and put in very nice cabinet maker quality drawers. And I thought, well, these are good drawers. I'm not going to throw them away. So this was kind of design as you go. I started at the bottom and just kept on adding. But, and they're still on the runners they were on. And they hold an awful lot of stuff, including most of my clamps, which is nice. Let's see, what else? Of course, I have pegboard, and I intend to put more of that around the shop, but I like pegboard because I can see everything. The workbench was the first thing I built for my shop, because when I got the shop finally, and I've only had the garage for about 15 years. And so when we built it, I purposely built a 3-car garage, but you notice it does not have a garage door. That was on purpose. I did not want this to be taken for another car or truck or anything. So I intended this to be my workshop, and at first my workbench was just an old office table that I'd picked up for $5. Then I built this workbench. Had most of the wood pre-cut at Home Depot. I kind of begged, and the guy said he'd do it for me in his off hours, and He said, I can't guarantee it's going to be accurate. I said, it's wood. If it's within 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, I can deal. So he cut all the wood to size, marked the pieces for me, and it went together pretty easily. So, and I learned how good pipe clamps are for squaring things up. Because my handyman tried to square it up and he couldn't. And then I thought, aha, pipe clamps. And I had those from my dad. This was one of my earliest tools, my chop saw, which it's not one of the ones that travels in and out like a radial arm saw, but it is definitely valuable, and I have used this for a lot of stuff, including moving it into the house so I could do crown molding. It's just very, very useful tool. Had this before the lathe. This is probably the first standing tool I ever had. I got this so I could put down a parquet floor, and I needed to be able to make some precision cuts. So I asked for this for Christmas, and it's an okay saw. It's not the greatest, but it works, and I don't use it very often anyway. And as you can see, it is on a cart. That was how I got a lot more room in my shop. Before I had all these little rolling carts, everything was on the tool carts with the splayed legs, or on my Black & Decker workbenches, which had the splayed legs. And you can imagine how much room I had to walk around, like zero. So I built all these little carts, two sides with straight legs, and immediately got a lot more space for walking around. And of course, everything, including the workbench, is on wheels. So that makes it a whole lot easier. I am going to replace my pipe clamp storage place with something. I don't really like it like that. For one thing, they're heavy and I have to lift them. Okay, my planer joiner. This replaces one that finally wore out. It was smaller, and it was a Sears one, and I couldn't get replacement parts for it. I couldn't get replacement screws for it. So it went to the dump, and I bought this one, which I like very much. Okay, my planer. This is my second one. My first one, I got really mad at it because I had to take it to have the blades changed because I physically did not have the strength to turn the darn screws. And that costs you about $125 every time you have the blades changed. So I figured it was worth it to buy a new one. This one's super easy. I love it. That fits everything. It stays there. It has little holders for the screws. The blades are easy to take off. I really like this. Directions for changing the blades weren't great, but I found a YouTube, and that did a great job for it. Then my bandsaw, again, which this I love because it flattens things so that I can glue them more easily than using a planer. So I use this a lot. Now, my router table. The table it's on is actually from my dad's old workshop. And it wasn't big enough. He had his router on it. But he had a little Black & Decker router table that I wanted a nicer one. So I went and bought this, which I really like. But it would fall off the table because it was too big. So I built a little box for it. And that worked. And it's all clamped on. So I can just pull the box in. It's on wheels and has drawers and a cabinet, things that hold it. Now, my pride and joy, which I saved for a long time to get this. Before I had a little tabletop table saw. It worked. I did an awful lot of work on it. According to my daughter's boyfriend, it was super dangerous, but I was careful. I got the saw stop. I decided that I've hemmed and hawed on this a lot because it's a lot more expensive than other top-notch saws. However, you can't hurt yourself, or at least not very easily. And I figured it was very cheap insurance. So, and I really like the saw. I use it a lot. I did learn it doesn't prevent kickback. And I don't care what they say about the riving knife and all the other safety, which you can say I've taken off. you can still get kickback. So I basically, if I'm ripping something, I take it more than halfway through, turn off the saw, take it out, flip it over, take it in from the other direction, no kickback. Anyway, I really like this saw. It's worth the extra, whatever it was, $500,000. I don't remember. I've had this saw for so long. It is worth every penny. That is super cheap insurance. This little cabinet was from my dad's workshop. I just throw things in it. Now, the desk, and I keep, like, this is my drill drawer, that's my tape drawer, that's my measuring stuff, etc. That was my desk at school. I bought it because the teacher desks were too small, and when I retired, I brought it home. And it's very useful. And, of course, obviously, my shelves. Okay. Sandpaper storage. Whoops. Okay. Bring it over here. Sandpaper storage. This little cart is great for sandpaper storage. You can get them at Michael's. They hold a lot of different stuff. You can label the drawers. I really like it. Plus, it rolls around and has a flat top for stuff that doesn't fit in drawers. And my grinder. It's an 8-inch. I did get one of the diamond wheels when I took the class in sharpening, and the guy that taught the class suggested I buy one. So I did, and I do like it a lot. I use the one-way thing for sharpening. I am far from an expert sharpener, but it works. I hardly ever use this wheel because I have a hard time staying steady on that. I did get the Work Smart, but I've never really mastered it. So I don't use that very often. And, of course, my main tool for sharpening is a magic marker to color the wheel, the blade, so I can tell where I'm going and when I've finished. And what else would you like to know?
Well, you share your shop with a garage.
Yes, I do.
There are a couple of cars in here, but you've climate controlled it.
Yes.
To make it more comfortable. Tell us about that.
Well, this has been a project over time. I mean, I didn't have any of this when I started, and so I lived without climate control for a long time, which meant that in the summer I had a lot of fans, but it was really hot. And in the winter I had some space heaters, but they didn't do much. And so I was finally able to put in that little split sear or whatever thing it is. And oh my gosh, that makes such a difference. Now I can use my shop 12 months a year, which is really nice on rainy days when I need to escape. So I can come out here and my blood pressure goes way down.
Okay, well, thank you. That certainly is an aid to the shop.
It really, really is. Now, another thing I've put into the shop is dust collection. Because I have breathing problems and my eyes are always irritated. So I have quite a bit of dust collection type stuff. Would you like to see that?
Sure. Take a minute and tell us about your dust collection.
Well, dust collection's pretty important to me. I have breathing problems. My eyes get irritated with the least amount of dust. So, again, this has been a progression. Naturally, I started off with your good old shop vac. You start off with that. And that's great for vacuuming things up. It does create a lot of dust when it's vacuuming, and also when you empty the canister. This was my next purchase, and pretty much I just used this with the planer because, of course, otherwise you get barraged with wood chips. So this thing works great. And then I needed more dust collection, so I bought this, I guess it's a turbine or something like that, a cyclone. And I really wasn't quite sure how it was going to work. I had to ask at the store. He explained it to me, and we had to really retrofit it. I had to take the whole darn shop vac in because we couldn't figure out which hoses would fit it. This really works great. It's amazing how much gunk it separates out of the wood chips. I bought these things, these magnet things, so I don't have to move the tubing around. I literally can just take, everything has its own dedicated tube, and all I have to do is that. And that's a tight seal. That is a very tight seal, and it's easy to, watch me make a mess of it. There, it's easy to take them apart. You don't pull the slide. And so now this has like 6 feet of hose. Everything else has 6 feet of hose. And I can just roll this around and find the hoses. Those things are kind of expensive. If you're interested in them, I would suggest Google magnetic ends for dust handling hose, and they'll come up. They're worth it. It hurt me to buy them. They're $25 a piece, but they're worth it.
Looking at around the shop, I don't see a lot of wood storage. So how do you handle and where do you store your wood?
Okay, before that, I want to point out one more thing for my air system because I'm really proud of this thing. I put this in. This was the last thing I put in, this air filtration system. And that really does make a huge difference. I don't know how it works, but somehow it collects a lot of the fine dust that used to irritate my eyes. Now, wood storage. Okay, first thing I built as soon as we had the garage was this hanging wood storage. It'll hold a lot of weight, and as you can see, I've got quite a bit of wood up there. It's just that I need help getting it down. I'm not very tall, and even that ladder is not quite enough. So, anyway, my other wood storage is outside. And that's where I have all the logs that people have given me. As soon as you say you turn, people start dumping logs on your ground, which is very much appreciated. But if you just leave them on the ground, first of all, it's not great for the wood. Second, it attracts things like snakes, which I don't like. So I built a little stand for it outside, and you can take a picture later. But I just stacked the logs onto a stand. My husband helped me cut them into manageable lengths. And I used the end seal stuff on every single one of them. So hopefully that's kept them from drying out and cracking all the way through. So that's what I do with my wood storage.
Okay, if you could take everything out of the shop and create a new shop, same size that you've got.
Same size. Oh,
is there anything you would do different than what you've done now?
I think what I would do differently is put up pegboard before I put up anything. And I'd have all the walls pegboarded. Oh, by the way, the insulation, that I had to do that before we did the temperature control. So that was another big deal. But I would have pegboard everywhere. I really like it. It makes everything easy. I think that's basically the only change I would make, other than having more tools.
Are there any shop issues that you're struggling with that maybe you would want help with someone else?
I would love for somebody to come up with a way to easily store sleds. This little one is easy for me to handle, but of course it's limited in what I can use it for. I built this big one. It's very heavy. I don't know what to do with it. It just kind of sits here. And then I have this one that I just bought for angles, and it just kind of sits here propped against the workbench, because I don't know where else to put it. But I want it really convenient to the saw. And I've used that a lot for cutting angles for some segmented turning. I've been trying to figure out segmented turning and been having kind of fun with it. It's a little bit more of a challenge. So I've enjoyed doing that. Manual storage. I keep all of my shop manuals out here. And they're sort of organized. You know, I've got all my saws in the front and everything like that. But that comes in really handy when I have to figure out what's wrong with a machine or something like that. Or for the saw stuff, how to find the dust collection port, which is hidden in that saw stuff. Very well hidden. You need a flashlight. And to lie on your back on the garage floor to get to it. So, I use the manuals a lot. Now, underneath this, and I'm going to pull it out for you. One of these plastic things from Walmart. Believe it or not, this one's probably 10 years old. They hold up pretty well. They hold a lot of stuff, and I'm able to just zip that right under my workbench.
And what do you store in that?
In this, I have all the pieces for various slides. In another drawer is a lot of the parts for the saw, like the extra brake for the dado, and one of these feather things, and my pusher thing, and I know these are great, I just hardly ever use it. And then in the bottom drawer, I have my extra inserts, like the one for dados. And, yeah, it will go in. There we go. And the riving knife and some of the other things that I know I should have on the saw permanently, but they get in my way.
So it's a consolidation of all of the pieces and parts of the tools in
Yeah,
one place.
it's just a place to throw things and I know sort of where they are and I can pull it out and generally find things, which is helpful.
Okay, well, Catherine, this has been a fascinating tour. Again, a lot of material in a small space. So
Yeah, I do have one more thing I want to show you.
okay.
This is the easiest thing in the world, and you can probably move the camera back later, but this is just a bandsaw blade attached to my workbench, and it cuts sandpaper. So when I need to rip a piece of sandpaper, I can just fold it in half, stick it there, and cut it. And that is really fast and really easy and really super cheap. Anybody could do that. Pretty much anywhere.
Okay. Fascinating. If anybody wants to contact you, maybe to help you with your sled or ask questions, do you mind if we share your contact information?
That would be just fine. That would be just fine.
Okay, well, Catherine can be contacted. Her email address is, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathera, so it's Katheri 365 at AOL.com.
Interesting thing about that, this lets you know how long I've been on AOL. I was the 365th Catherine. I think they've got about 50,000 of us now.
Well, congratulations. Again, thank you very much. It was a very nice tour.
You're welcome.